Hello, everybody. It's good to be with you again. This video is going to be a little different today. Instead of talking about a biblical subject, let's talk about coping a little bit. What's happening in our world today. We're running about a month into this quarantine and restrictions taking place. And I remember back a month ago, we talked maybe a couple of weeks. And now we're into a month, and it looks like it's going to be even longer than that. And if you're like me, you're beginning to go stir crazy. Um, I'm getting a little stir crazy. I'm active and busy and working, but still stir crazy. And I talked to my sister in Texas, and she's getting stir crazy, and my daughter is getting stir crazy with the kids and all the restrictions going in. So let's just talk about that a second. Um, because there's a couple of things I think need to understand what's happening to us before we can adapt. The first one is this is trauma. Trauma in a simple definition is any drastic change that causes stress in your life, or an action that causes stress or discomfort, or the body and brain and emotions can't handle the sudden shift. And that's what this is. We're in the midst of trauma. This is sudden, it's unusual. Everybody's out of their routine. Nothing is what it used to be. We have no real grasp of how soon it's going to be over. We're all struggling through this. And I think the first thing about coping is just to admit that. This isn't fun, this isn't easy, and we're all in this together. And it is a major change that's taking place. The other thing that I was thinking on this past week was what this is grief. In many respects, what we're all doing is we're simply deep in the midst of grief. Because we've all lost things. We've lost, in some respect, we've lost freedom. We can't go out, just run to Walmart whenever we want to, or go to the movies, or go out to eat, or run over to a neighbor's house and sit and have coffee, or even hug your grandkids. We haven't seen our grandkids in months now. Desperate to see the grandkids. And what we've done is we've lost something that's been taken away from us. And grief, no matter what it's from, is hard. And it takes time to pass, and you got to cope with it. So here's some coping skills. This is some of just learned from personal experience, and I'll try to be honest with you. There's things that I'm having to do, and some things that I've learned is going through. The first thing is, for me, is the most critical thing, is staying connected to God. Now you probably expected me to say that, but that's the truth. For us followers of Jesus Christ, that needs to be a main event for us, and a main thing for us. Is staying connected to God. We try to put all kinds of stuff here out on Facebook and on our Concordia's YouTube page for resources. There's all kinds of good devotions through Concordia Seminary and Lutheran Hour and Lutheran Layman's League and Higher Things. There's all kinds of good devotions to stay connected. Nothing ever will substitute for simply reading your Bible. I urge you, if you're not doing that regularly, start in the book of Matthew. Just start the book of Matthew and start reading. I say don't start in Genesis, because what happens, you read Genesis and you get through Genesis and Exodus. It's cool at the beginning, but then you get into those laws, but you suffer through it, and you get through Exodus, but you get to Leviticus and you just stop, because all those were laws, and legitimately so. So start in Matthew. That's a story about Jesus and his caring. That's fun to read. Just being connected to God in those times. The other thing that's crucial in these times is prayer. Prayer is what God gives us to stay connected to him. And it's coming to God and spilling your guts in what's happening in your world and what you're struggling with. Tell those to God those things you won't tell your wife. or your husband, and how hard it is and what you're struggling with, and just open up to him and ask his help in what's taking place. The other thing I think is taking place is connect to friends. Now, no, we can't go and sit and have a cup of coffee with people. Um, but I was listening to a broadcast this past week, and it was saying one of the most effective things is low tech, high touch. And what they meant by that was the telephone. Just call people up. Call your friends up. Stay connected with your family and friends regularly. What's going on in your world? Share what's going on in their world and what's taking place, and maintain those social connections. Even for us introverts, we need to maintain social connections with people so we don't feel that isolated, that there's people around us. But the other thing is staying connected to people to work together. And what I mean by that is being the people of God. Right? In our congregation, there's people who are lonely. There's people that are lonely. They're isolated. They may have to have a strict quarantine and really not seeing people and getting out, and health issues and homebound, and just the struggling people. Stay connected with them. Call them up. Tell them you care. Going in and just love on those people. Just this admonition, this command that Jesus gives us to love our neighbors, has taken a new meaning for us. It's real now. We as to be the people of God, we need to love our neighbors. Sometimes our literal neighbors, but those neighbors that sit next to us in the pew that we're not seeing anymore because this coronavirus stuff. Other thing I want to share with you is that I've learned is watch what goes into your brain. And what I mean by that is this: there's all kinds of bad news and negative news taking place. I said this earlier, and I'm going to say this again. It's your pastor's suggestion to you. Stop watching the news. Stop reading the websites. I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat or Independent or Druid. Stop watching the news, folks. It's all kinds of bad news. Stop putting that bad news in your brain. Start seeing encouraging things in your brain. Watch what goes into your brain. That Netflix series, somebody was telling me about a Netflix series on pandemic. And they loved the pandemic, but it was so depressing of what's taking place. And I was talking with them on the phone, and I go, how stupid is this? We're in the middle of a pandemic, and you're watching something on pandemic that's just depressing you. Well, stop watching that stuff. Right? You can only live on Netflix so long. You can only live on TV so long. So watch what goes into your brain. One of the things that I'm trying to do is find good books to read. Right? If you're blessed to have a Kindle or something like that, electronic reader, you can read those books. But there's still a lot of good classic books. Go back and read the classic books. Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, those works. Let that good literature and those good things soak in your brain. Right? The other thing is laugh. The weekly emails that I send out, I try to put at least one humorous thing in it every time. There's some good, clean jokes out there. Joke sites. There's good, clean cartoons out there. Find something to laugh at every day. This is too serious to take it too serious all the time. We've got to be able to laugh at it. We've got to be able to laugh at what's happening to us and laugh at ourselves as much as anything else. And the struggle we're going on and taking place. And what's happening is just to be able to laugh at our situation and knowing that this too will pass. Right? Last thing, last thing is is see something beautiful every day. See a picture or listen to music every day. Um, See something beautiful out into the world so you can stop and say, that's gorgeous. If you're taking a drive and you see flowers, stop and just look at them for a second and say, whoa, those are great, beautiful. Or see a sunrise or a sunset and say, wow, that's great. It's beautiful. Um, Most of the museums in our country and around the world are online now. Um, Go look up the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. I've been there. There's incredible pictures, incredible beauty. The place. See something beautiful every day. As let that soak in your brain to remind ourselves in the midst of this, there is beauty in the world. There is gorgeous things taking place in the world and still there. That's not been taken away. Last thing I want to share. Okay, wasn't previous thing wasn't quite the last thing. Last thing is this: give yourself a break. I tell people all this as they're going through grief. You got to give yourself a break. If you're going through a trauma, you got to give yourself a break. And your pastor's talking to himself at this one. Okay, make sure you understand that. Your pastor's talking to himself at this one. Give yourself a break. It's hard for everybody. None of us have been down this road before. We're all making this up as we go along. You're going to do some things right. You're going to do some things wrong. You're going to be on some days, and you're going to be surly and mean and nasty to the family around you. Apologize and give yourself a break, because we're all doing the best we can with this. So I'm going to leave you with this. That's kind of a summary of some things to cope. The other thing to cope with is kind of go back to what I started with is knowing God. Right? One of the things that we're going to start a sermon series on 1 Peter on our Sunday mornings. And 1 Peter is a book about hope. And that hope's always there. So as we go forward in this, as we go forward with hope, and it's not a blind hope, hoping things are going to get better. It's a hope anchored in Jesus Christ. It's a hope anchored in the fact that Jesus is risen from the dead. And the one who stands in our future, the one who controls time, who controls all things, is the one who defeated sin and death, who rose from the dead, and that's the living, resurrected Jesus. He is our hope. So hang into that. Good to be with you. Thanks for watching, and God bless.